Coming up next on the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast.
And I'm like, well, what do you use for bookkeeping? Like, they're like, oh, we don't do that. Like, it's not even happening. I'm like, you don't even know what your expenses are. We can't even start yet.
From your first dollar to your first million, welcome to the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast, presented by ZenMaid. Join your host, Stephanie Pipkin, founder of Serene Clean, as she shares proven tips, tricks, and hard-earned lessons. Whether you're just starting out or ready to scale, get ready to discover how to build your own cleaning empire. Let's roll up our sleeves and dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Pipkin from Serene Clean, and today's guest is Ken Carfagno. Gosh, now you screwed me. Now I'm all messed up. Okay. I'm flustered because you're good at this. I never screw that up. That's so funny. Literally never screwed up an intro before. Okay. You're getting me nervous. Okay. Ken Carfagno.
Just roll with it. Just keep going, because when I get letters in the mail, it would say like, okay, this happened recently. You start off with a story. I went skiing with my son, and we had this really nice lodge set up. We get to the front desk. I said, yes, a reservation for Carfagno. And they're looking through. We don't have a reservation for Carfagno. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And so we're putting in all this information. They can't find. I'm like scrolling through my feeds of emails and texts, like trying to find the confirmation. It's on this day. Do you have it for the? No, we can't find it. I said, okay, can you get the manager? The manager came over. I was smiling. I'm still being kind. My son's just watching. You know, he's like, okay, what's Dad going to do next? And he's 20. And so the manager comes over, and and then he says, I found it. We have you under Ken Carfagno with a P. And I said, Carfagno. That is one. I've gotten a lot of different ways to say and spell my name, but I have never gotten Carfagno. And so I said to my son, looks like we have a name change. We're going to go. So is that going to be like on my lift passes at the ski resort? I said, no, we'll fix this. And then they said, plus here's a free dinner on the house. I'm like, all right, I'll go by Carfagno all weekend if I get free food. So
that is a good one. I get mine all the time. My last name is Pipkin, and especially on the phone, it's like they can't and I'm like P is in Pam. Like it's very good. It's very challenging.
I have to go 5 consonants. It was C as in cat, A, R as in Ralph, F as in Frank, A, G as in Gary, N as in Nancy, O. When I have to go 5 consonants deep to help someone, it's just part of my life. But if any of the Italians out there, it's Carfagno. So, and with that, since you butchered my name, this is awesome, Miss Vivkin Peffelcorn.
Bethany. I get Bethany a lot.
Bethany.
Well, Ken Carfagno is our guest today, guys.
What do you want to talk about?
Yes. Yeah. What do you want to talk about today? Well, first off, I want to talk about, because I feel like everything I've ever seen, you kind of glaze over the pivot from engineering to cleaning, and why that choice? Why did you leave? And I mean, I know you've talked about it before, but I would love to hear it, because it is such a huge pivot.
It was the number one question I got, and it was a very interesting setup for every time I went into a house to do an estimate. They would say, so you're an engineer and you're here in my house to do a house cleaning quote? And they just like give me this look like, why? What happened? And I would just tell them the same thing. You know, it just wasn't the right fit for me. I'm very good at math and science. It was an obvious fit for me, but it wasn't the right fit for me and what my personal goals and values and mission was in life. I know I've shared this on other podcasts, but the short version of the story is I was in a very aggressive engineering culture. I was at General Electric, and I was in a leadership program there. They're grooming guys and gals like me, not gals like me, but guys like me and gals like you in our young 20s, as I was 23 coming in there from Penn State. And I was in this leadership program. They're grooming us to be the next managers, executives, and possibly CEO of a major multi-billion-dollar corporation, General Electric. And it was a dream company for me to be at. I met the whole board of directors. I met the CEO, Jack Welch, in my first year. I met multiple CEOs of different GE companies. I had a lot of visibility. I got in rooms that most people didn't get in at 23 and 24 years old. So that's a great thing in multiple reasons, but it's also a bad thing. I got to see the inner machine of the company, which I was excited to be a part of until I wasn't. And so at 24, at that point, my now wife, we were just still dating and we wanted to start a family. We wanted to get married, start a family. And the man that was like the idol to me, and I was super afraid, super intimidating, Mr. E. I was living in South Carolina with my girlfriend, and our family's in this area here, Philadelphia. And I'm far away from home, feeling homesick, even though I was excited about like the big first job in a different state and it's warm down here. There's all of that. But I'm in this small private meeting with people my age, all in this executive training program I'm in. And Mr. E's there, and we're all intimidated by him. And he's talking about the future of power generation. That was the part of the company I was in, you know, these things called like solar panels and wind turbines. This is like 25 years ago almost, when we're thinking these things will be big in the future. And he was going through all of this explanation and everyone's excited. This is great future. I'm in a great company. And then one guy asked this question. It's like, hey, Mr. E. We're like, okay, what's he going to ask? And he says, yes, what is it? What's your personal life like? And it was like pin drop in the room, because you don't ask a guy. I would never have asked him that question. Even if I was sitting at lunch with him, I wouldn't have asked him that question. But I'm so grateful I was in the room to hear the answer, because you can see a man that's strong and confident go like this. He went like that. He deflated right in front of us all. I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be good." And he just said, because this was in Greenville, South Carolina, which is in the mountains of northwest South Carolina, closer to Atlanta than it would be to like Myrtle Beach. All right. Mm-hmm. But 2.5 hours from Atlanta. But he says, well, I live here in Greenville, South Carolina. My wife lives in Atlanta. I'm like, huh? Your wife lives and then he says, if you want to have a personal life, you can't do what I do. And he was bluntly honest, which I am eternally grateful for, because he went through what it looks like to be in the job that I wanted to have. And it just ripped my heart out of me. I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I've shared this many times too, but you know, when you're looking for a new car, like you want this, you know, whatever it is, like I was looking for a Honda Pilot, was the one I bought a few years ago. And all of a sudden I started seeing Honda Pilots everywhere. It's called confirmation bias. Once this came to my attention, I'm this big shot engineer, but wait a minute, no personal life. I won't see my wife. I won't see my kids. I started seeing all around me in the company, divorce, guys cheating on their girlfriends, vice versa. And like kids, like pictures of kids on their desk, but they never see them. I'm like, why would I pursue this dream? So for me, I just wanted to get out of all that and have my own company. I wanted to be the boss. I didn't plan to be cleaning. So like, how did it go from A to B? It wasn't my plan. As a Christian, I knew God has a larger plan for our life. And the way it worked out wouldn't have been my top choice, because I basically checked out of the company after that conversation. And within 3 years, I was fired. I went from stock options to out. But along the way, my wife started a cleaning company, just, you know, for the fun of it on the side, for extra income. We had a couple different businesses on the side. And that was the one that, you know, when I lost the job, I couldn't find another engineering job. So I guess when your back's up against it, you have a couple of choices. You're either going to fold or you're going to move forward. And that's character right there. You know, what are you made of? It's called grit. And a lot of people, especially in our industry, we can get into all kinds of stuff, but I'm just going to speak bluntly and plainly, and I'll do some fun stories in there too. But what I see in this industry is a lack of entrepreneur mindedness. I see a lot. I see an industry that is so easy to get into that it attracts everyone into it. That's a good thing, but a lot of people don't have the mindset, the fundamentals of running a company. So they need to go get that to be successful. And they think, well, I'm a good cleaner. I'll be a good cleaning business owner. They're two completely different skill sets. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge problem. And that component called grit, like every one of us is going to be up against the wall. You don't just start this thing and it just is roses and flowers and honeysuckles or whatever. You start it and it's good. At some point, you're going to hit a wall. And what are you going to do when you hit that wall? Like when I was at that spot, all right, what am I going to do? You know, I guess I better take this cleaning business and run with it, because otherwise we're 5 hours from home. We had almost $200,000 in debt. And this is almost 20 years ago. I have a wife with a 10-month-old at home, and I got real responsibilities in life right now. And I cannot just sit on my butt and wait for unemployment. What am I going to do? I need to do something. And the entrepreneur that was already inside of me started coming out, and it was really difficult. It was scary. It was exciting. It was fun. It was nerve-wracking. It was anxious. It was every emotion you can have. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I had really good mentorship at that time in my life as well. So I think a big component for people to succeed in a cleaning company is awesome. Hey, you like cleaning. Maybe you're a mom and you're good cleaning around the house. Awesome. We welcome you. But let's get a couple things straight. Don't come into this industry and charge $15 an hour and make the rest of us look bad. Okay? Be a real business. Okay? Mm-hmm. Second, come into this industry and learn how to be a business owner. It's a separate skills. It's different. It's different to learn. And we can get into some of the fundamentals that I think are super valuable. But I'll just kind of pause there. It wasn't like I planned it, but anytime when the hindsight is always 20/20. When you look back, and I've got a couple years on you, Stephanie, just a couple. But when I look back, it is clear as a bell. It makes perfect sense how these skills in this particular part of my career led to this, which led to that. But going forward, it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm so happy you, one, laid out your story. Thank you for that. But two, focusing so heavily on grit. And I don't know, what is it? Angela Duckworth has the book named Grit. And that's an excellent book that talks about the science of having grit, and even the concept of the E-Myth. That was one of the first books I read before Michael Gerber, E-Myth Revisited. I'm a big book girly. And I read books before I opened the business, and him laying it out of just because you're really great at baking cakes does not mean you should open a bakery. And it's so funny you just said it's such a low barrier to entry industry, which is a wonderful thing, but it also can really hurt the industry as a whole. I totally agree with that. I was just talking to Erica at ZenMade actually about that the other day, because she was talking about, what are the pain points of our industry? And it's like, well, one of the pain points, we serve three different categories of people, in my opinion. We serve our clients, we serve our employees, and then our community as a whole should be, one of your people that you serve, and I think. And so if you are unable to differentiate yourself on anything but cleaning, well, there's lots of great cleaners. That's the bare minimum. Like, just because you're a great cleaner doesn't mean anything. We should all hopefully be good cleaners. It's everything else that makes us stand out. And, becoming a great business owner, I'd love to hear, what do you consider the fundamentals that, our listeners, like I mentioned to you, a lot of them are still in the field, or they're just a couple years out of the field and they're really struggling with a lot of these entrepreneurial concepts. What would you say are those building blocks and foundations of that strength in entrepreneurship?
Oh yeah. That's a softball pitch for me. Thank you. Thank you for letting me answer this one. So I'll start with some basics. Okay. This is blocking and tackling if you're a football person. All right, I got fundamentals, but I got some basics too. Basics is you should be a good cleaner, or at least have the propensity to learn how to become a good cleaner. Like, yes, okay. Believe it or not, I've been around the industry over 20 years now, and there are not a lot of good cleaners. So I've moved over to commercial cleaning I'm away. I don't do houses anymore. I'm happy about that. For many years I did it. And when I go into an office to do an estimate, just for perspective, just to give the listeners an idea out there, like general landscape of office cleaning. And I saw this in houses too. My standard at Carfagno Commercial Cleaning, my standard isn't just an 8 out of 10. And I want my employees to maintain an 8 out of 10. And an 8 is actually like, it's not a 10. I could clean to a 10 if I want, but I said an 8 is good enough. That's an 80-20 thing. When I go and I do an estimate in a typical office, if I look at it in terms of, what if that was my employee cleaning here? Well, what honest grade would I give them? I grade most offices that I do estimates in between 3 and 5. Mm-hmm. And I can tell them, it's nice. I can tell an employee, hey, I would love it if we all had 10s, but we don't need to do a 10 because here's the fact. There's not a lot of good cleaning companies out there. And if we just do an 8 out of 10, that's twice as good as what's already there if they're averaging a 4 or 5. So be a good cleaner as a basic, or learn how to become a good cleaner. There are some steps there. But that's a basic. That's good. A lot of people have that basic skill, especially there's a lot of moms coming into this industry. The next basic is be professional, be reliable, be responsive. You would not believe how many times in 20 years I have spoken to someone and called them back because that's what I do. Yes, hi, this is Ken Carfagno from Parfagno from cleaning. And I'll say, yes. And they'll say, well, Ken, thank you for calling me back. I say, well, you're welcome. But why do you say that? Because you're the 5th one I called. No one returned my message. Mm-hmm. And I say, here's what I do now. I used to say, well, I'm shocked. Now I apologize. I'm really sorry for the lack of professionalism you're dealing with in our industry. That's my industry, and I'm a podcaster, a speaker, and a coach in that industry. I will give that feedback back to my industry, and we'll see if we can raise other people up because that's unacceptable. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. And they're like, who are you? So that's the second piece. Be reliable, show up, be accountable, be professional. Professional is a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother thing. Everyone can define what that means. But people will judge you. They will judge you based on the way you look, your first impression. Just like if you clean good and the person comes home, the first thing that they see when they walk in the house, that's the first impression. They're going to judge your cleaning ability based on the first impression. They're going to judge you, the person, based on your first impression. So those two are the basics. Now here's the fundamentals. Should I pause on the basics? You want to talk about more of those? Should I go to the fundamentals?
I want to, you're preaching to the choir, and it's just very validating to hear, because that's another thing I said to Erica. I was like, everything that's fun about branding and marketing and all of the icing on the cake. I just can't speak today, apparently. It's just today, okay? It's just today. It truly is that professionalism is the foundation that we can then build upon. Because if I just have a really good branding and marketing, but then I don't do all of these basics of following up and doing what we say we're going to do, then it really doesn't matter, because then we're not being trustworthy and honest. Because if we're saying we're all of these things, but then we can't follow through on these basic fundamentals, it's just, it makes you look really bad. And yes, the bar is so ridiculously low from a competition standpoint of, if you can show up, communicate, and clean well, it's like you can wipe the floors, it feels like, which is sad. And that's what, especially when you are coming from like a solo cleaning model and you're so overwhelmed and you're like, how do I do that? And I feel you, but you have to make it happen, because otherwise you're never ever gonna accelerate. It's just gonna compound on problems.
Yeah, I agree with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say to someone I was coaching that's newer, I'll say, if you just follow up and do what you say you're going to do, like say things that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, and do a good job at it, you're already above 90% of your competition. And people would say, this is interesting too. I did this with someone asked me a question on a coaching call, and it's like, well, Ken, isn't the industry saturated? There's so many new people in my area. There's so many cleaners. And I just do the numbers with them. And this was fun to do this. Let's just look at the United States. I looked it up. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it worked out. There's around 350 million people. And I looked and I looked up the number of households there were in the country. And it worked out that there was 200,000. I think it was 200,000. There were 200 million households. That's what it was. That's the number. And I know there's around 1 million cleaners from the latest stat that I saw. 1 million cleaners, 200 million households, 350 million people. So that's one cleaner to 200 houses. Well, if it just worked, if every cleaner was perfect and amazing, and it was, a society where, you can only have so many, and then every cleaner gets their 200, right? If that's how it worked, well, 200 households is almost $1 million company. That's a $600,000 to $700,000 business. You'll do okay at that. But here's the sad truth and the reality of those million cleaners. Only a tenth of them are any good. And so really you have, instead of having one cleaner per 200 houses, it's really one good cleaner for 2,000 houses. And how many are like really good, that have a good business owner's mindset and they know what they're doing and their benefits in the community? It's even less. So you say, well, how do I separate yourself? It's not that hard. It really isn't that hard. So if you're out there asking the question, how do I separate myself? What's the technique I should do? And what kind of tissues do I have to fold to, and how do I do this? What kind of smells do I leave? No, none of that stuff. Just have a good firm handshake, a smile, dress professionally, show up on time, and do a good job. You will, that right there, set yourself above so many other cleaners. All right, then there's some other things as far as pricing and these other fundamentals. So we can get into that if you'd like. I can go through the fundamentals that I have.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And when did you? So your separate business is, just so I have a little clarity on the timeline.
Oh, sure.
Started in residential, and I love that you ran solo cleaners, because that's how we do it at Serene Clean. So cool. Yeah. So cool that you think that way. And I know you have a lot of reasons behind that. And I have a couple questions on it actually, but I'll put a pin in it. And then when did the commercial cleaning come out of it? Because at Serene Clean, we're actually 50% residential, 50% commercial. And that is, I know, fairly unusual. So I'm curious, you had a whole separate business that you opened just for commercial, right?
Yes, I'll answer your question. But just one thing you just said about being 50-50, residential and commercial, that is not unique. That is very common. Most residential house, I've worked with residential cleaners a long time, and a lot of them have some component of commercial. There's very few that are 100% residential. Maybe it's 2%, 5% commercial. So I started out with apartment cleanings and then moved into real estate cleaning, which went into recurring weekly, bi-weekly, monthly house cleaning. But I also picked up a law firm around that time. So I was always like 90% houses, 10%. But we were living in New York. So I went South Carolina with my girlfriend and then engaged, and we went to upstate New York. That's where we started the cleaning company. And I was solo. I was solo for 16 years. I didn't have a team until recently. I was solo for 16 years. And in the first company we ran, it was, again, just me, 90% residential. And there was a point where there's two pain points that I'm going to talk to you about that every solo cleaner deals with. And I love talking about it and helping people overcome them. But I went through those pain points myself. And in the first business, I remember hitting the second pain point, which was I have no time because I have a lot of customers. I'm solo, no time left on my calendar, but I'm not making enough money and I'm getting stressed. I wasn't like this where I'm real calm. I was like really feeling the stress, and my body was starting to wear a bit. I was in my early 30s. I'm starting to feel tearing on my elbow, I had meniscus tear, my wrist, my lower back sometimes would hurt. I'm like, can I maintain this for until I'm 40, when I'm super old at 40, which is not old anymore, by the way.
Pretty much ancient by then, right?
Yeah. My kids will call me that for sure. But I stayed solo, and instead of heeding the advice of what the well wishers in our industry will say, oh, well, you're stuck. The only choice is you better get some subcontractors or go hire someone. You got to go scale. You got to go bigger and bigger, like the Wunschler said in the Lorax. You got to keep going bigger and bigger. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. I was scared of hiring back then, but I'm like, I'm an engineer. There's got to be a better way. And then the fundamentals came in. I created a model, a system, and I instead of scaling, I optimized. I got really efficient in 3 areas. And when I had finished optimizing, I went from a 5 and 6 day a week solo business, obviously no employees, and making back then 55, 60,000 profit. 3 years later, I'm making the same profit, but I'm working 2 days a week. And I'm with my family 5 days a week, not like when I was sitting at that desk or that lunch and learn with Mr. E, and he was like, you'll never see your family with and here I am 5 days a week with my stay-at-home wife. My kids are homeschooled, and I'm like the stay-at-home dad. And then 2 days I go clean my guts out. That was a pretty good gig, making $60,000 a year. That, because that business was so solid as a solo business, we sold that for $80,000 in 2018. And we started a new company in the Philadelphia area. We wanted to move back home. I did it solo, and I went 50-50 residential, commercial. Back to your question. Just me. I didn't want the drama of employees, but now I had a model for how to do it, a system. Like Michael Gerber says, I was a good technician, but I was also a very good manager and a very good entrepreneur. And I had a system for this. And in 18 months, went from 0 to 70,000 a year profit, also working just 2 days a week. And that was really cool. And then from that point, I made a key decision in 2021 that, I'm working 2 days a week. I've got time. We're making enough money to pay all the bills. I've got some money. I have some margin. I'm ready to now become the leader that I would need to become to step out of the cleaning full time and become a business owner running a company with employees. I'm ready to scale the business now on my own terms, not because someone said, oh, you're stuck, you better hire and scale. No, it's a lot of work to grow as a leader. It's a lot of work to learn how to set the branding in your company and to build values and a mission statement with vision, and you want to attract the right people and repel the wrong people. And it's hard to interview and build a hiring process. It's hard to train and to get the right people doing the right things for the right amount of time in what you're doing. And so I wanted to have the margin to do that. And so in 2021, my wife and I, we picked a goal. We're going to go to Florida for a month. I can't do that if I'm cleaning 2 days a week as a solo. So we went and bought the Airbnb. We rented the house with cash we didn't have at the time. And we did it. It was 9 months out. We said, we got 9 months. Let's make it happen. And from that point, we made the switch. Like, I'm going to do this through commercial. There's a lot more background into why I chose the model I chose, why I went 100% commercial. But I made a decision. I knew I had to make the decision I made. And it was, I'm going to go full commercial. And 9 months from now, I'm 100% commercial. And we're in Florida. And we made that. I was still about 10% residential when we did it. So I had some houses, went to Florida, didn't clean those houses for a month. But the buildings we had at that point, we had employees cleaning them. And for a month, we were in Florida. And it was so game changing. And it's such a dream builder. Like, we could do this again. And we did it again the next year. And it's just been a process of growing with a team, growing as a leader, and seeing the bigger picture. When you're a solo cleaner, there's a lot of awesome things you can do. You can optimize, and you can have a lot of time, and you can make good money as a solo, and you can stay there, and you can spend a good chunk of your career like that and not harm your body, because you can work 2 or 3 days a week, give your body 3 or 4 days to heal, and you can sustain like that for many years. And 50, 60, 70,000 a year is probably enough for a lot of people. Others, they might want to make a greater impact on the general community, on the region, and you want to have, you want to employ people, you want to, feed the dream of others. So that's a different model. That's a different dream. And you do it for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. So, so that was a longer version of the answer I thought I'd have. But so I made the switch.
So I'm curious, you don't have to, give all your tasty secrets away, but when you say optimize, optimize as a solo, specifically, I guess my mind immediately goes to, did you just get you cut down on the number of accounts and just made sure the accounts that you had were super duper duper profitable? Is that like less quantity, just very high quality? And from a house perspective, just you priced yourself out of the majority of residential and just only went after certain, or can you extrapolate on that specifically? Because I'm sure everybody's like, ow.
Yes. And I've taught this on some of the Made Summits, and this, I did one called like how to make $100 an hour cleaning houses. And this is back 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. You're right. So there's 3 parts to optimizing. The first one is you got to get really efficient, in your numbers. Mm-hmm. And how are you doing as far as the money that you're bringing in? How much are you keeping? You got to know your numbers so good that you start to study them. And you're like, you know what? Why am I spending this much money on gas and car stuff? Well, it's because I'm driving to this town 6 times in the same week. Why don't I go there twice and batch all my houses on the same day? Like, there's little things. There's route density, right? Mm-hmm. There's little examples. Or like, I'm spending 19% on cleaning supplies. Is that good? Let me check with some people. I would say that's not good. I've always seen it between 3 and 5%. Maybe you're too high. There's lots of little places. So you want to get efficient with your expenses. The second thing, you want to get more efficient with your time, as far as how long you're taking to get to locations, how long it takes you at every location. So you want to get faster at houses without running. So you've got like the speed cleaning system, and I've got like an optimizer's toolbox with, like the Pareto's principle and Parkinson's law. There's a bunch of like little like productivity. 'Cause I'm an engineer. I can I can engineer the house and say, I can keep you working at the same speed, same physical speed, but show you a different mindset on the home or on the office. Whereas you can get in and out faster and still keep your customers happy. Because I would say to someone that's a perfectionist, what's the goal of the house cleaning? Is the goal to make you happy or to make the customer happy? Think about that. The person that's a perfectionist, they say, I want to make me happy with the work I did. Well, I want to be happy with the work I did, but I'm more concerned with, is the customer happy with the work I did? If the customer's happy, I'm happy. I want to do a good enough job to make, and every customer is different. You got to figure that out. So the second one is how to get more efficient with the time you're spending, and not just the houses, but everything you're doing. Mm-hmm. I know people that spend an hour on the phone goofing off every day. Well, you're losing money. That's pretty dumb. And then the third one is, like you were saying, pricing yourself out. Over the course of time, you want to become known as like the specialist in your area. Now, I would say this applies more for the solos out there, although I think it's wise for any business, to continually improve everything about what they're doing, because people will, if people perceive the value of the service you're offering at level A, they will pay anything pretty much up to that. So if your perceived value is down here, you can't charge higher than what they perceive the value of the work is. So your price is always going to be less than that. So always find the things we mentioned in the beginning about how do you increase your value. So always find ways to increase the value of what you're offering, and constantly bring the price up. So increase your price over time. So you're always getting higher priced clients over time. You're getting in and out of houses faster, and you're more efficient with your numbers overall. And that's how I went twice in 2 different companies now in 2 different states, from, a big schedule to a little schedule, and make the same money. And you can also do it the other way too. Well, someone might say, well, Ken, I'm young and I've got no responsibilities. My body's in great shape. And I'll say, well, you got no excuse. You don't need to work 2 days a week. Go work 5 days a week and make 140,000 as a solo. And then back off, scale, decide what you want to do. So those are the 3 ways that I teach for optimizing. I touched on a couple of the fundamentals already too. Should I cover those? You want to step in with another question?
No, let's go forward on fundamentals. That was really informative on efficiency for sure.
Okay, so the 4 fundamentals that I've discovered is, the first one is know your numbers. People don't know their numbers. This is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. I'm a former engineer. I know my numbers, and there's a great story I've shared multiple times. Since you mentioned you do know Debbie Sardone, I've interviewed her a few times, and she's a legend in the industry. Everyone knows Debbie. Well, I was commenting in some of her groups before you even had a business, probably. This is years ago. And I was still cleaning in New York. And she's like, she called me out of the blue. I was cleaning a house and she called me. She's like, yeah, Ken, Debbie Sardone. I'm like, Debbie Sardone? I think I comment in your groups. Aren't you like the? She's like, yeah, Ken, I'm calling to see if you're the real deal. Because I'm leaving feedback in her groups.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, how can I help? And she starts grilling me with questions about what I do, how I do it, because I'm optimizing as a solo at that point. She's asked me number after number after number. I answered every question because I know my numbers. And then at the end, she's like, all right, you're the real deal. Mm-hmm. And that I respected her a ton for that, because she was making sure that she checked up on people, because there's a lot of people that leave advice. Very few are actually qualified. Very few are qualified. And then you've got people that do have good advice, but there's a warning to all the people out there that go in the Facebook groups. There's general advice and there's specific advice. First of all, watch out for the people that don't have the leg to stand on. They don't have actual legitimate good advice because they don't know what they're talking about yet. That exists out there. I'm not saying everyone, but there is a lot of that. And I used to be one of them. But then you have the people that have good advice, but it's general advice. Yes, if you're running out of time, you should scale. Well, that's general advice, but it's not great advice for everybody. Everyone has a specific situation with a specific type of personality. They got different money, a different schedule, different family, different location. Specifically for that person, they have a specific type of advice they need, and they need mentoring and coaching for that. So beware of general advice. It's generally good, but it could be also very bad if you take it. So know your numbers is the first one, and most people don't know their numbers. And I've asked some of our accounting friends in the industry, and they've verified this because they've spoken with a lot of business owners that are cleaners, and majority don't know the numbers. The second one is
bookkeeping isn't even happening sometimes. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who have been in business for years, and I'm like, well, what do you use for bookkeeping? And they're like, oh, we don't do that. It's not even happening. I'm like, you don't even know what your expenses are. We can't even start yet.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna give a really good way to get someone started with bookkeeping. All right. Mm-hmm. What do I track? How do I do it? So most people starting out are going to be a sole proprietor, and they're going to publish a schedule. They're going to file a Schedule C with their 1040 each year. If you don't know what I just said, that's a problem to start with. But a schedule, all right, but you're going to file a Schedule C, all right? Go look at the Schedule C. The IRS spells out the different expense types on the Schedule C. Advertising, automobile, marketing. Go take those expense types on the actual Schedule C, put them on a spreadsheet or on a piece of paper to start with, and start taking our expenses and putting them in the right categories. Yay. And you'll be on your way to bookkeeping, and then you'll get more sophisticated as you go, but at least you'll be able to give an accountant the same expense types that the IRS is already asking for. There's a free tip for you right there. Know your numbers. The second one is mindset. We talked about this already. The average cleaning business owner is really a cleaning business job person. They have a job mindset, and they're trying to take their job mindset. That technician into a business. A business owner has a different way of thinking than someone that has a job. They're night and day, completely different. The job person sees money going out as spending money. Well, a business owner might see that as some of it's spending, a lot of it is investing. Might be in time and money being invested for a future benefit. Job person doesn't see that. Well, in some cases they do. But there's a whole lot of things and areas under mindset that you need to acquire a business owner's mindset to be successful as a business. Mm-hmm. That's that skill set. That's the second one, is business owner mindset. The third fundamental is a strategy, or some say a business plan. I'm not big on business plans, but you got to have some kind of a process you're following. And there's a lot of great people out there, a lot of great coaching programs. And you find one that relates to you and the goals that you have and follow it. It could just be the E-Myth. That is a strategy. You got to have a strategy that you're following. And I recommend following one that's proven. Mm-hmm. You don't have, in cleaning, there's not a whole lot you need to recreate in cleaning. It's been around a little bit. And all you got to do is copy a proven system. And there's plenty of them out there. The fourth one is the one that all of my people pleasers and my introverts and the ones that have trouble looking people in the eyes because this is hard. This is the one that they don't like, but you got to become good with people. I'm a people person. You need to really become good with people. There's so many books. This is where I had to grow the most as a new business owner. I was an engineer. I was not good with people. I couldn't look people in the eye. I couldn't hold a conversation. I would have been scared to death of doing this right here. I couldn't go into a networking meeting and talk to people. I couldn't go to a conference and walk up to someone and just start talking to them. So there's some basic skills with people. And the best book I recommend in this area is go read the book, The Go-Giver.
Okay.
By Bob Burg, The Go-Giver. Because I don't mean you need to become a salesperson. I didn't say that. Become a person that's genuinely interested in others. Be generous. Be someone that's curious. Be someone that's humble. Ask questions. And when you actually care, there's a saying, when you're interested in others, you'll be interesting to others. Mm-hmm. So I want to be interesting. So I need to be interested. If I'm not interested in others, then why would they be interested in me? Mm. So there's some basic skill with people that you're going to need to get really good at. When you mix those four fundamentals together, working like really good with people, you've got a business owner's mindset with a solid strategy, and you've got, your numbers, you're tracking everything along the way, and you can put A plus B equals C. You know what all that is. That way you can stay on track with everything. And when you fall off, what's going on? Maybe it's the mindset is off. Maybe I'm not doing good with people. I need to read another people book. Maybe I need to take a leadership course. Maybe I need to hire a coach, like whatever it is. But those are the four fundamentals that I have seen that are lacking. And some people enter, they might have 3 out of 4. Maybe they have 1 out of 4. It's rare that they have 0 out of 4. But usually there's at least 1 lacking, and just 1 lacking is enough to hold you back for years.
What I love about these 4 things is these are all skills that can be learned, practiced, and mastered. These are not, I think a lot of times we label ourselves of, I'm an introvert. I am not a people person. I'm not a math person. I'm not good with numbers. I hate sales. I'm not good at these things. And so we just are like, well, I'm not good at it. So I'm not naturally that way. And it's like, these are all skills, like what you're describing for being like having charisma, looking somebody in the eye, being interested, like these are just things that you learn how to do. And it may come more naturally I would consider myself a curious George. I'm so like inquisitive, but that makes people feel very catered to, from, again, employees, community, and our customers. That it really, really, really helps. So yes, I would say I'm very naturally good at that one, the KPI one, or, I've been psychotic about the numbers since day one. And I just love systems. So it's just, like I can relate to those, to my own stories of like, those were the areas that really stood out over time of just keep focusing on that. And, I'm glad that you said that most people have at least one and really using that to their advantage of even bringing it back to what you said about professionalism. Like I remember my first walkthroughs as, at houses, and I was 22 years old, shaking in my tennis shoes, but I had my polo shirt on. I had my checklist, and I just was super confident and just, acted like I knew what I was doing, even though I didn't. And that really served me well, because if you're nervous, it makes them nervous and thinks that you don't know what you're doing, even if you don't,
Here's a tip that you probably can relate to when you walk into someone's house. This is a people skill. Use the mirroring technique. And you can identify someone's personality type pretty quickly. If you walk in, could be the wife, could be the husband, whatever one it is. If over the phone and in person, within those first few moments, if they're giving you 1 or 2 word answers, they're quick, it's bullet pointed, you know that they're a person that's kind of just gets right to business, and you want to mirror that and follow that too. You want to answer in bullet points and get through quicker. They're going to like you more and think you're more professional if you're more like them. If someone is very talkative, which you can tell right away.
Their life story.
You walk in, Mrs. Jones is like, "Oh, I'm so good to meet you, Stephanie. I used to have a friend named Stephanie. She went to high school with me, and then like 5 minutes in, you're like, wait, why'd you come? Oh, yeah, you come for cleaning. Like you have that type of person. You want to control it and not have it be too long, but you can share some stories with that person. You don't necessarily have to do bullet points. You mirror that. And so if you use that, that's just a people skill. But you'll relate and build trust. The whole purpose of the people component is you want to create know, like, and trust. Everything we do as an owner is we're creating trust in every aspect of the business. That's if you have employees, it's with the employees, with the customers, with the vendors, with the community, with other, collaborators. You want to build trust. You want people to know you, like you, and trust you. When you have that firmly gripped in your community, you'll never have to find a client again. They're going to find you.
That's so true, and exactly kind of what I have experienced of, like, we don't have to go pay for advertising because they just come. And like,
right.
If somebody has broken trust or they're really struggling with this, obviously, the direct answer is just, well, do what you say you're going to do. But say you do screw up, like, can you describe how you would earnestly fix that and hopefully turn that person into a raving fan? Because that can happen, right?
Oh yeah. You need to own it. We talk about grit in the beginning.
Accountability.
Own it. Just own it. I just made a mistake last week, and I just owned it today. And it was, I got an email, and it was a complaint from a customer. And in the email, there's a scroll bar that I didn't notice. It was like a small scroll bar where it was one of those HTML weird formatted emails. And so 1/3 of the message I never saw. I just saw 2/3 of it, and I responded off of what I saw. I didn't do good. And it went back and forth, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I might lose this customer. I've had them for like 6 years. And then I saw the scroll bar, and I got back to them, and I just had my hand. Hey, I'm going to own this. This is all me. I totally screwed this up. And here's what I did wrong. Here's the lesson that I just learned from you, and I'm not going to do this again. I really appreciate that you teaching me this, and you treat me with respect and professionalism. This was all me. My bad. I've done that a few different times, and each time I've owned it. Like, I remember we lost a customer because I wasn't doing any quality control. I just assumed the cleaner was doing a good job, and I've owned it with that previous customer to the point where they're like, yeah, hey, Ken, if something falls through with our cleaner, we're definitely bringing you guys back. I really appreciate how much you owned your mistake. That is huge. And then this is something I would tell my children, but it applies to everyone. There's like this Einstein thing out there where, like, it's like you could do one really good thing and it doesn't take much to dilute it. But I've heard it takes from Einstein like 11 positives to erase one negative. Like that's hard to think of. But I've always said it with my kids, you treat your brother or your sister really nice 3 times, and then you smack them upside the head or you trip them down the stairs. Like, no, don't do that, right? Mm-hmm. But that one time you break trust could erase 3 times that you worked hard to build trust. So just realize, cleaner, Mr. or Mrs. Cleaner out there, you will screw up. So I'm going to say it again. You will screw up. You will break trust. How you respond is own it, and now go build it back up. Sometimes it could be the type of trust broken, like in a marriage, like infidelity in a marriage. That's trust broken. That's hard to restore. It's few cases where that can be restored. But in terms of cleaning, I mean, there's some things are unforgivable, I suppose, and they're just going to fire you. But as long as you're honest, you take ownership of what you did, you let them know that you learned a valuable lesson from this. You thank them for teaching you the lesson through this problem, through this mistake. They're going to respect you more. And on the other side of it, you'll actually have more trust than you had before. That's what I have found in 20 years in this industry.
That's such good tactical advice on how to establish that, how to fix it when you do break it. And yeah, we've had instances where we have screwed up, and the way we handled it, meaning, owning up to it and learning from it and making sure it doesn't happen again, especially for that particular client. I've seen reviews come through of like, hey, they screwed this up and they fixed it so good. Like, here's a 5-star review. I'm sold on them because it's not in the fact that you did the thing wrong. It's how you addressed it after the fact can really stand out to people because they're so used to people not taking accountability and just trying to push it under the rug. So, excellent advice there, Ken. I'd love to take a moment, maybe even a few moments, and talk about commercial because everybody wants commercial. We have, I think, 64 active commercial accounts right now of varying sizes. And a lot of them just kind of felt like they stumbled into my lap. So I would love to hear overarchingly, how do you approach commercial? I just had an interview with Mark Lineberry recently, and that was, oh my gosh, people are loving that. It was so fantastic. Yeah. And, I love commercial so much. A lot of people are like, why don't you just not do houses? Like, well, my business is in rural Wisconsin. I'm in Savannah, but my business is in very rural Wisconsin, like 5,000 people. So it's, house. And I like houses. That is an emotional, I like to serve residential clients as well. So there is that reason, to be had there. And it can be really fun and rewarding. But from your perspective, what would you say are the biggest downsides to commercial, and how have you circumvented those downsides? Because there is some struggles with commercial for sure.
First of all, Mark Lineberry is a genius.
Yes, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. Mark's a good friend of mine. We've been pals for multiple years in the industry and out. So good guy. Definitely recommend listening to his podcast episode and checking out his stuff too. He has Mind Clean Pivot. Some of his blogs are outstanding.
Oh, they're amazing. They're amazing. Instantly you can implement things from them. Yeah.
Mark is so smart. He's one of the most gifted teachers, and he just, I don't know how he fits it all in his brain because he has so much knowledge. So, okay, Mark, you can cut me a check later. I'm just kidding.
Give us some of those juicy schools you got in churches.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, no, that's his niche, schools and churches. He's amazing at it. So I would start out by saying this about commercial versus residential, because I get asked this a lot. And to keep it super, I'm going to speak to probably the person that's listening that's, maybe between 50 and 150,000 in revenue. Maybe they're on the cusp of expanding and adding their first employees. They're still solo. But what's the big deal? What's the difference? So commercial cleaning and residential. Residential is hard to do and easy to get. Commercial cleaning is easy to get, or easy to do and hard to get. So what's an upside of residential? Well, you can get within 3 months, you could have 10 clients without a problem. If you're any good, like we talked about in the beginning, there's no reason you shouldn't have 10 within 3 months. So you can say a sales cycle You could go from 0 to 10 in 3 months. Commercial, the same goal might take you 3 years, only because the sales cycle is much longer. You have to get in line behind the cleaner that's already at a building. All right, next thing about commercial residential. This is the obvious one. Residential, you clean during the day, during the week. Commercial, you clean nights and weekends. With the exception of a few different niches in commercial, like barbershops, churches, chiropractors, dentists.
A lot of manufacturing facilities, and those all run multiple. So we got big boys who are daytime, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
but
there's a few. There's a few. And you also deal in commercial, you've got to deal with a really large janitorial firms. You have some that are subcontracting across the country, and they have contracts. And so, you're competing with really big firms. I mean, you're talking 10, 20 million, $50 million commercial cleaning firms doing business across the entire region. Like, how do I compete with that? Well, you want to really be particular on the niche that you clean. So since I'm mostly speaking to people that are in-house cleaning interested in commercial, I'm going to recommend that house cleaners stay within what I would brand as small commercial. Like, there's small, if you want to look at it this way, like, there's small would be maybe 0 to 10,000 square feet of a building. Then large, like mid-size, maybe like 10,000 to 25, 30,000, something like that. And large is like 30, 40, 50,000 square feet and above. 5 nights a week, 50,000 square feet building is very hard for someone that's by themselves to do that. But a 5 or 6,000 square foot building, one person that's a solo can clean that no problem. Even if it takes them 2 nights to do it, it's okay. So if you stay within those smaller commercial that are weekly, bi-weekly, there's even a few that are monthly, that fits really nicely into the house cleaner's schedule, but it doesn't really compete against the giant janitorial companies. They don't really want to mess with, it's $600 a month. That's $7,000-8,000 a year. I don't want to mess with that. I want the one where I can get 15 grand a month. Mm-hmm. So if you know your niche, because I'm not speaking to commercial cleaners listening to me. Mm-hmm. They'd be like, Ken, why are you telling them that? I'm speaking to residential cleaners that are interested in doing some commercial. So I would say, know what you're getting into. It's nights and weekends for the most part. It's way harder and longer to start, all right, and to get into. But once you're in, one of the best benefits of commercial, it is so much easier. Because when you're in someone's house, that's their personal space. They own that space. They are really, really specific on how they want things. When you're in someone's office, that's where they work. Do they care about where they work? Of course, but not as much as about where they live. Mm-hmm. Their desk is less important than their master bedroom. Mm-hmm. It's just a different level. And here's a huge advantage for residential people. Because full commercial people in general, that level of cleaning I mentioned already, like that 3 to 4 or 5, a residential person that's used to cleaning hard houses, they come into commercial, they're already going to be better at cleaning than a lot of because I came into commercial through residential. They'll be better at cleaning coming into commercial than some of the commercial ones already out there. You just have to learn a couple new skills, and it's a slightly different way of quoting it. And you might get scared by the size of some of the buildings, but there's a lot to it. I'm not sure specifically, maybe what you're looking for here, but I'm just trying to enter some generalities about the comparing the two. But I mean, I can also share this. I was 15 years in the industry when COVID happened, and I was 50-50 commercial residential. I can't speak for everybody, but being that I was in, I was running a membership, and I had lots of connections. I was doing a podcast with residential and commercial people. A general statement that I can make is that commercial business owners stayed the same or got better during COVID. Residential business owners lost 50 to 90% of their business during COVID. They all bounced back, but it taught me something interesting. Maybe a big pro for commercial is, if we have a worldwide pandemic or anything that scares people off again, it seems to be that commercial is a little bit more stable. So that's also something to factor in. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
just
definitely stickier, I would say. Their recessions seem to, for example, some of our bigger accounts that are 5 nights a week during the slow season, or they're hitting hard times, they may reduce to 3 times a week. They don't cancel though. Where houses, as soon as they feel that pinch, cleaner's gone, right? That's a luxury.
Yeah.
And I know, people argue about that whole like, oh, is it a luxury? Blah, blah, blah. It is a luxury to have a house cleaner. All right. Like at least in America, I feel.
Yes, it
And
is.
so, especially when we're trying to price on the highest range and really, be seen in that way. I don't really use, I don't want to have a race to the bottom or anything along those lines when it comes to pricing. So yeah, commercial is sticky and you really have to screw up badly for them to change because it's a whole, like you said, that sales cycle is so long. And there's a lot of decision makers sometimes. It takes a lot for them. So if we lose commercial, it's like, gosh, we really screwed that one up.
That's a great point. If you lose commercial, you must really stink.
Yeah.
But, but everyone, you're right. You made a great point. It's a luxury to have a house cleaner. It's a necessity to have an office cleaner. And so it's also people say, well, does that mean you're not going to be able to charge as much in commercial? Well, that's something you could look at that as a potential pro and con. What I have found, again, residential crossing over into the small commercial, just touching that band. And examples, law firms, maybe some small banks, insurance companies, chiropractors, dentists, like professional, like that kind of space, maybe some small manufacturing places that got like a warehouse bathroom and like an office space in the front, that kind of thing. As long as you're staying within houses to small commercial, the profitability and the pricing I have found to be about the same. But once you get into the larger buildings, the more frequent that you're cleaning them, now you need to be more competitive and offering more volume-based discounts and size-based discounts to be able to compete, because you start having those prices at the small commercial level to the next version of the next size of you'll price yourself out. And I saw that because my pricing model was still like the solo house cleaner. And then when I started having employees, I had actually I did some estimates when I was still solo commercial cleaner 4 years ago. I redid those estimates now, and my prices went down like 20-30%. And I'm like, oh wow, I really did overprice these. It's because my model's different and my profitability is still really good, but it's just a different way of pricing. Because it's no longer me as a solo within that window of small commercial. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Out of curiosity, do you pay, you have W-2 or do you use ICs?
No, I have W-2.
Okay, great. Me too. I'm a fan of W-2. So
Yeah, me too.
never had an IC, but it obviously can work great. It's just a different model. But do you pay them percentage, a flat rate, or hourly then? I'm just curious.
I pay commission.
Oh,
so it would be a flat rate. And that I made that choice because I have a core value of ownership. I want to attract people that are professionals. They have people that work for us have full-time professional jobs that they went to college for. They come to work for us part-time nights and weekends. And I say to them, I'm looking for owners, people that have an ownership mindset where here's your job, own it, do it with excellence. I don't want to babysit you. You're a professional with a college degree. You're just looking for some extra money. Go put your earbuds on, do a great job. If you get it done in 3 hours or 2.5 hours or 2 hours, as long as the job is done well and we score it, you're going to get the same pay, which might be $50 or $60 for that job. And so for our company, C3, we have our team members are averaging about $22 an hour that are on commission.
Do you have a commission tier then based on, because I've seen folks who do commission, they'll basically incentivize, great behavior by having kind of a tiered system of, no complaints, great attendance, you pay them higher? Or is it just, this is I keep wanting to go to percentage, or it's literally, this is how much this particular facility pays per cleaning. Is that what it is?
Okay. So yes and no. The model that I'm running is a little different. I have part-time people cleaning, and I don't expect them to stay with me for 5 years. they could. I have a few that have been with me for 3 years. I'm very blessed to have them. But most people, they get a part-time job with us. It might be like 10 months they're there. They're not really going to see those kind of increases to start with. So I already know that's not as much of a function of the model I'm building. So for us, it's a case-by-case basis. So we have people that are there for longer that are doing a great job. I'll do bonuses. We'll drop off gift cards as thanks. I will bump up their commission for the same job, and basically give more of the profit to them as I feel that they've earned it. So, but it's not spelled out in a system at this point. It's case by case only because of the model we have. But I've seen residential companies that do exactly what you just described, and they might start out at whatever percent it is, and that percent goes up and up. Like maybe it starts at 35% or something, goes to 37, 39, 40. You top out of here. If you mess up, you drop back down. I've seen that. I got to imagine that's got to be pretty difficult to keep track of as a system, right?
Yeah,
but
I've seen folks go from that back to hourly because they're just so overwhelmed by
I can see that.
Yeah, for sure.
With anything. I mean, the reason I chose it though, the fundamental mindset of why I chose this, people that have an ownership mindset that want to come work for our company, they really like it that they can go out and work faster and make more money per hour. So I'm attracting people that think like that, and that's who I want. So I have that model in place because I don't want the hourly thinker. Well, I'll just show up and I'll do the job and take 3 hours. I'll take 3.5. I'll take 4 hours. I get paid for 4 hours. I don't want that thinking. I want the one that's thinking, how can I get this? I want them always optimizing. How can I get faster, but still do the job really great? Because I'm hiring family members, not my family members, but some of them, but I'm hiring people that have families. And I say to them, hey, your first time, it's going to take you 4 hours. It's okay. I pay a training rate in the beginning, but you're going to get faster. That 4 hours is going to be 3 and 3/4, 3.5, 3.25. Eventually get down to under 3 hours. I want you done as fast as you can and maintain this score of 8 out of 10. And then you can make the same money and you can get home. You can get home faster to see your family. That's what I want for you. And they're like, oh, I love that. And the people that love that fit the rest of our core values, that's who we want. If they're like, I don't get your model, good.
Awesome. You want to scare them off. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad you don't get it.
I want some free advice then, because I have, paid hourly, and residential and commercial, we pay hourly. And I have been, obviously what you just described that's amazing. And that would be fantastic, wonderful. And of course we have their approved number of hours per job. Like you cannot go over this amount, et cetera. But yes, the side effect of hourly is they're not incentivized to move any faster because they make it the longer it takes. Right. And so we cut it off. It's like, this is approved for this, et cetera, et cetera. But okay, at my side, I have about 30 staff members. Right. And so it feels like a colossal undertaking to even consider transitioning, especially because some of my cleaners are hybrids, and I'm not, residential is going to stay hourly for now. Like I can't even imagine doing that right now. So do you have any advice for me if I were, and I'm going to make they're going to listen to this. All right. I want Katie, April, Crystal. All right. I'm talking to you right now.
Oh boy.
Because I love this concept of incentivizing them to move as fast as possible, get them out the door, but maintaining quality. Of course, we have a super extensive quality control system that I'm very proud of, but how would I go about this? And, say it is somebody who does both residential and commercial, that's a lot of our staff. They do hybrid shifts, 11 to 7 or whatever. What do you got what would you tell me? How would I go about it?
So this does fall under the area of specific versus general advice. So just some general things I'll share will be, one, I have never personally built a large residential company. So I wouldn't be the right one to give that advice. I wouldn't want to overstep that. There's a lot of really high qualified people in the industry. And so I would leave that part there. As far as your specific situation, there's a difficulty with implementing a commission strategy when you have a lot of people on your team. So, for example, in commercial, so my mentor and coach is Josh Melton, and he has the same model. You should interview him, by the way.
I'm writing his name down.
Okay, yeah, Josh Melton. He runs a membership, the Six Figure Cleaner. I'm a part of that as well. But Josh is when it showed me the commercial model with the professional working part time. Like I saw that, I interviewed him for my podcast. I'm like, Josh, I really like that model you're using. Let's talk. And he ended up doing that. And he was using commission up till about 100 employees. And it got to the point for him where it just kind of got too hard, too bogged down, we're just going to make the switch. They switched back to hourly, and it allowed them, it was a lot of energy to maintain it. And I think the drawbacks became, or the risk reward, I think it became too much for the reward they were getting. So I don't know where at some point there's probably a separation where it's not worth it. I don't know where that is. Maybe at 30 staff members, maybe you're at that place. But I would say it's not a bad idea to A, talk to some other coaches and get their feedback, and B, maybe find your top team members that you might want to give that they've been around with you for the longest, and they've definitely got a go-getter mindset. And they're potentially people that you could bring on for management at some point. And you could almost like split test it. You could take a couple of them, offer them. I'm curious about doing a trial. I might consider doing this commission system for the team. Explain how it works. Would you be interested in trying this out for 3 months? And you set it up so that they won't make any less than they're currently making. They can only gain. They can't lose from it. So if you set that up like that, then you'll get some real evidence from your own team members. And you also like, wait, that was really hard to implement, but you know what? Actually, this is working really well. The quality is still the same. We're paying roughly the same, and the employee is getting to get done faster, because there is another benefit to the company, because if they have a 3-hour job and they're just a really good worker and they get done those jobs in 2 hours, they're going to make the same money. They're like, hey, can I have another job for the same day? Now you can put more, your average number of houses per employee can go up in theory. So on paper, it looks really good. How you run this, individually, I would just say, ask around a little bit more, and you could attempt to like split test it with just a few of your top people, but talk to them first and just, hey, this is what I'm considering doing. Does something like this interest you? You might get someone that said, no, I wouldn't want to try that. Be like, oh my goodness, Stephanie, that would be amazing. And you do it with them for a month, and it's working out amazing. You're not losing any money. You're actually seeing productivity go up by that person. They're making more money. They're happy. You're happy. You're like, wait a minute, that's really working. Now maybe I should try it a little bit more. So it's a little bit of both. But as far as like me giving a specific answer for residential,
that is excellent. That's a great idea. Ashley V, Lori, some of my cleaning techs who I know listen to the podcast and are fantastic commercial cleaners. What do you guys think about this? Let me know. maybe we'll give it a whirl. I love that. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. Great advice. Well, I do want to, be cognizant of your time.
Okay.
So any other words of advice or things that have been on your mind recently that is like, you're just like, gosh, this is grinding my gears about this industry, other than lack of professionalism? The soapbox is yours, Ken.
All right. I will take that opportunity. So I'm going to speak to all of my solo cleaner friends out there. Well, Ken, you're not a solo cleaner. I was for 16 years, and I held up the banner high, and I was the optimized solo cleaner. There are 2 pain points I have seen solo cleaners deal with, and I have seen well-wishers telling them horrible advice for too long. The first pain point is there's so many people that are brand new. I don't know how to get any customers. I can't get customers. I'm pricing too low. I can't. How do I do it? And they're posting tons of things on Facebook groups. All right. So here's my advice for you. Work on your people skills. Get a better mindset. Read some books, especially The Go-Giver. Learn how to create know, like, and trust in your community. Stop thinking short term. Everything you do has long-term implications. and believe this is one of the best business opportunities on the planet, because it is, and stop thinking so short and how it's not working, and think about how it is going to work. Change your statements of I can't to how can I, or what can I do? What can I do differently? Get out of being complaining mindseted to humble, grateful, and opportunistic, and get some grit. So for those people that are stuck in that first pain point, I don't know how to get customers, overcome that hurdle. Well, how do I get all my compliance, and I'm stuck in all these questions. Just go get the problem and then figure it out as you go. That's another piece of advice too. You don't have to have everything perfect before you get your first customer. It'll be okay. But yes, you do want to have insurance. You do want to have a legitimate business entity. You want all these things in place. Your own business account. You want to have separated finances for all you people that, well, I got my food money from my house and I got my cleaning supplies. I get them both from Walmart anyway. So I just, seriously, people, separate your business and personal. Okay, the next pain point is what I've already explained, is when you get to the point where you've overcome the how do I get customers, and now you're doing so good at that, but because you don't remember my 4 fundamentals, like I mentioned, the first pain point is mindset and people problems. You get to that, you overcome that first pain point. The second pain point is if you're not good with your numbers and you don't have a strategy, that person that's great at getting customers now they work 7 days a week and they make $30,000 a year, and they have no time. Their body's getting beat up and they're freaking out and they're asking a question, what do I do? Here's my work week. And then all those people out there, all those well-wishers, if you're one of them, yes, I'm talking to you. Stop telling them you need to scale. You need to hire. Go get some subs. Get a helper. Stop telling people that. When someone has no margin emotionally, financially, or physically, and you tell them to go do the thing that's going to take a lot of emotional margin, a lot of financial margin, a lot of time to start a team, to get the leadership in place to start a team, that is a huge undertaking. What they need is not your advice on going to start a team. They need more time first. They need to shrink their week a bit. So the way to overcome that challenge that you're in, what I would say is learn some basic optimizing skills, know your numbers. And how about this? If you're working 7 days a week, making $25,000, bring that down to 3 days a week, making $25,000. Okay. Now go to 5 days a week and making $50,000. Now you're making more and there's a little bit more margin. You'd be in a much better place to scale from there. So my biggest beefs are those 2 pain points that every solo cleaner will hit those 2. And it's how you respond to each one of them. The first one, I think, has to do with that E-myth you mentioned. They're wrapped up as the technician and they can't get their head wrapped around the manager and the entrepreneur. And that second pain point, well, they're still not very good as a manager or entrepreneur, but they just don't know what to do because they've never experienced it. So there you go. Those are the 2 things that irritate me the most in the business.
I salute you, sir. That was excellent. Very, very motivating and very practical. So thank you, Ken. Where can our listeners find you? If they enjoyed this conversation, where can they go?
Sure. You can check out a podcast at Smart Cleaning School. Been hosting this for 6 years now. I interviewed a lot of the top industry professionals, including the ZenMaid leader, Margos. You can check out that one. But go to smartcleaningschool.com and you'll find information. If you want to get on a strategy call with me, you can do that. I do offer some free strategy calls. And then you can follow the podcast. There's almost 500 episodes. And there's also opportunities in there for coaching and memberships if you want to check that out with me as well.
Awesome, Ken. Well, thank you for your time. We'll link all those resources below, and I'd love to have another conversation with you in the future if you're ever open to it. So everybody else, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode of Filthy Rich Cleaners. Bye, guys.